and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, public comment?
Hi, I'm Dean from Lee. I was going to make a public comment about what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago. People were interested on a different measure than just the total spending. So I went to the website and tried to get all the data. And you can get, like, for example, the recent budget, FY15, you get the one before that. But our history has all disappeared. If you go, sorry, our history has all disappeared if you go back more than 2 years. So it'd be really nice to get all that old stuff back on the website that used to be there, like the old MS-26 forms, you know, the budget summaries, and all the old reports, the old minutes. These things are still, you know, our ruling decisions. We should have them available. I know you guys agree, and let's see, the other thing is, I think if somebody just filled out a right-to-know request saying, give me all these electronic records you used to have on the website, the district would actually be required to go and dig them out. Maybe we can do it without that.
Okay, thank you. Other public comment? Okay, announcements and accommodations from the district? I'm sorry, jeez, I'm sorry. All right, okay, approval of minutes, I'm sorry. Could we have a motion to approve the October 1st, 1914 regular minutes? Denise?
I'd make a motion to approve the October 1st minutes. October 1st minutes.
Moved by Denise, seconded by Al. Are there corrections, Denise?
Yes, regarding David Taylor's public comment at the end of the meeting, I believe that he was actually cautioning against having multiple warrant articles, rather than the way it's worded as would like to see multiple warrant. So I suggest that it says cautioned against having multiple warrant articles.
That was my memory of it.
My turn.
Kenny?
I had, how many do I have? That correction too, and a couple of other corrections. One was a correction of the correction, and it was where Dr. Morse will be going to the schools and he'll be talking with the staff, not with the public. I thought where Todd Allen spoke of the high school and what had happened during Spirit Week, I think there really was a lot presented with what Todd talked about and how concerned the district and Todd was, and how actions are being taken to try to look into what we should do about it and how this shouldn't happen. I think something like that should be reflected in the minutes.
Do you have language to?
Just that, so that it reads, Todd Allen of the high school spoke about the incident. It says with a very small group, but maybe say that concerned a very small group of students that happened last week during Spirit Week. The school district looks at this as a very significant occurrence, and we are, and I don't have language, I'll work on it. It didn't come out, but I will. I'll get
Todd,
language.
did you have notes that you spoke from that night?
Yes, I believe I do.
Do you still have them?
I just might.
You can submit those notes to Laurie, then she can just attach them to the minutes. Would that work, Kenny?
That would. I just think, because we're all very concerned about it, and
Yeah.
I think we should really reflect that in our minutes as well.
I don't think you'd have to have all the, maybe a couple, 2 or 3 sentences to get the gist of what, or would you want more than that?
No, that was all I
Is that-
wanted, just
Okay,
the kind of the
Okay.
severity of the situation, and
Okay, yeah.
we're
Okay.
treating
Okay.
it seriously.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and the last one that I thought maybe to add, when we're talking about the bonding and the funding for the school, and it reads they have learned about 2 weeks ago that they will be benefiting again this year from the lawsuit in the amount of, and I thought we should just define what that is, and I just said that, so that we will be benefiting again from the, it's really a settlement from the LGC lawsuit, just to.
Okay, just be
Insert
be
that.
specific about that. So,
Yeah.
okay. Are there other?
What I meant to say about my committee meeting, the Sustainability Committee, was that
What page are you on?
page 6, bottom of page 6. And I didn't express myself well, but if it's okay, I'd like to say they are in the process of developing the pillars for a green ribbon school. That's just,
So insert
ribbon, please, yes.
The-
And it's actually the pillars, because they're already the pillars are already established, we're just working on those, so. Thank you.
Other corrections? Sarah?
On page 2, where Mr. Harrington was talking about the Science Fridays, and Dennis, please correct me if I'm wrong on this. My understanding is that he reported that Science Fridays opportunities will begin again for Mohammed fourth graders. He's working with UNH. Similar opportunities will be made available to Mastway fourth graders in the spring.
In the spring.
In the spring. Okay. And Laura, that's
Thank you very much.
Okay. Other changes, corrections? Okay. Could we have a vote on approving the minutes with the corrections that have been made? All those in favor, please raise your hand. 7 in the affirmative, the student representative in the affirmative. Okay. District announcements, it seemed like there was none. Is that correct? Okay. Board announcements, commendations? What? I'm sorry? Okay. Okay, sure.
Lisa from Transportation. I'd like to announce that our bus drivers are getting ready to have their 3rd annual food drive, headed up by Bus 22 driver Bill Harless, who is here in the room. And it will be October 27th through the 31st, where drivers will be collecting food from students and parents, community members, and then they take it at the end of the food drive to the local community pantries and split it up between the pantries and help out there. And they are also going to be at Durham Marketplace on October 25th, Saturday, where people can help feed the bus. We call it Feed the Bus.
Okay.
So,
I have one question. Is there anything specifically you're looking for from the students that are going to feed in? I mean, is there specific items that you guys are looking for, you know?
canned goods, boxed goods, non-perishable items. A lot of things that they don't get, which might be welcome in the pantries, are items like toothpaste, toothbrushes, you know, non-edible items, things like that. But we get a lot of boxed foods and canned goods.
Do you have a time for the October 25th at the Durham Marketplace? What time?
10 to 1.
10 to 1? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there other district announcements? No? Board announcements, accommodations? Sarah?
I just had a quick thank you to the entire Mastway staff for their enthusiastic participation in the Sticks and Stones program. That program was phenomenal for the kids, and I think anyone who went to see it was just wowed by not only the kids' participation, but the staff participation as well.
Maria?
I just want to mention and commend the students of the Sustainability Club here at the high school who took the time and initiative to go down to New York City for the People's Climate March a couple of weeks ago. They came back very enthusiastic over the whole experience.
Thank you. Other announcements, commendations? Okay. Because we had to move the strategic plan to this meeting when it was scheduled for last meeting, I've asked that unless there's some urgent report that needs to be made today, that the district reports be, moved to October 1st. And we may look down the road whether we want to have those once a month rather than every meeting. We may talk unless something urgent is coming up. So that's a discussion we might want to have to streamline our meetings. So, but have that later on. But we do have a student senate report, I guess.
Yeah, the Senate has just been working on a survey to get students' opinions on the current block day schedule, which is Wednesday and Thursday, as opposed to the former schedule, which was on Thursday and Friday. So that's been our primary focus at our last meeting and tomorrow's meeting. And the seniors have also been working on their rescheduled homecoming dance, which is on the 24th. And then the prom committee is beginning to, write a list of things that we need to do, so.
Great, thank you very much. So now, I think we need to go into a non-meeting to discuss the situation with the two negotiations that are going on. So we need a motion to go into a non-meeting, a second, and then we need to take a roll call vote to go into the non-meeting. So could I have a motion to go into non-meeting? Al?
I'd like to make a motion to go into a non-meeting.
Moved by Al, seconded by Kenny. Discussion? All those in, let's see, take a roll call.
Denise Day, aye.
Sorry.
Oh,
Can I ask one thing? With public here, does it make sense for us to do the public?
Do this first.
We need to do this first. Okay.
The part of the public's here for this reason.
Okay.
Denise Day, aye.
Sarah Farwell, aye.
Kenny Rotner, aye.
Al Holland, aye.
Tom Newkirk, aye.
Ed Charlet, aye.
Maria Barth, aye.
Okay, so we will adjourn to the conference room. Okay. Okay, could we have a motion to approve the tentative contract with the Oyster River Bus Drivers Association? Denise?
I move to accept the tentative contract with the Oyster River Bus Association.
Moved by Denise. Is there a second? Seconded by Al. So as far as discussion, if you could describe the terms of that agreement?
Could I just ask first, what is the tentative? I thought we were voting on a contract.
I would drop the word tentative.
That's fine.
Okay. So, thank you, Mr. Chair. The school board and the Bus Drivers Association have been discussing a renewed contract and have come to the following agreement. Highlights of the agreement include that it would be a 3-year contract, 2015-16, 2016-17, and 2017-18. That sick and holiday pay would be based on what we define as home and regular runs, which allows the drivers their 2 hours in the morning and the afternoon, and then defining what the home run would be. For example, kindergarten would be included in that. What would not be included is trips. So in any given day, a driver might do a trip, or in a given week, they might do many trips. That does not count towards sick day and holiday pay. The drivers asked for 3 personal days. That's consistent with what we do with our teachers and what we do with our paras unit. But in order to achieve that goal, we suggested that they reduce the number of sick days from 15 to 12. They agreed to that. In addition, we asked that they earn their days at 1.2 days per month for a total of 12. In the previous contract, they were given their 15 days on the first day they came to work. This also is consistent with other units. We deleted language that was no longer relevant, pretty easy to do. A major issue that we dealt with was the pay schedule. For current bus drivers, we reduced the steps from 30 steps to 21 steps, and we added a longevity bonus of $250 for drivers who are beyond step 21. I would say that this was a huge issue from management's perspective, as well as from the Bus Drivers Association. Largely what had happened over the years was a pay pattern that became largely inconsistent step to step. And so in any given year, somebody might get 23 cents, somebody else might get 7 cents, and somebody else might get $1.14. And Sue worked, really hard, our business manager, with a small representative group of the bus drivers unit to try to create a pay schedule that made sense. I also would point out that the bus drivers 6 years ago, 3 years ago, really voluntarily put forward a pretty dramatic proposal in terms of pay, and the district accepted that with pleasure at the time because of the fiscal problems the district and the state and the country was facing. The drivers owned a piece of that, and we thanked them for that. So in terms of adjusting for this pay schedule, we wanted to make sure that they were competitive with the market. When we did a market analysis of our bus drivers, we found that they were, I guess the word I would use is horrifically off point in terms of the beginning of the scale. We had drivers, beginning drivers, who would be driving for a little over $11 an hour, and the market was telling us that the beginning wage should have been closer to 15. So we could collectively, management and drivers, developed a pay schedule that was more competitive with the market. We also created a second pay schedule for any driver who's hired as of July 1st, 2015, and changed the health benefit to a two-person or family coverage with a much lower percentage of 90 for single, 75 for two-person, and 60% for full family. The drivers also agreed to language that would allow management to add a low-cost, high-deductible plan as an option into the contract as soon as one is available, and we will be implementing that pretty quickly, because since we finished with the drivers and started with our para-unit negotiations, a plan has become available, so we'll be meeting with the bus drivers at a point in the future to go over the benefits of that particular plan. So overall, the cost in year one to our district for the bus driver agreement is $69,147. We see an offset of $12,000 that we'll be talking about later, so the total warrant for year one of this agreement would be $57,147 with all the adjustments that I've mentioned. In year two, the warrant article would be $21,726, a significant reduction because all adjustments had been made. And in year three, the cost of the agreement would be $21,274, again, significantly reduced from year one because the adjustments had been made. So, Mr. Chair, that's a summary of the highlights of the agreement. I'd be glad to answer any questions the board may have.
Questions about the agreement? Ready to vote? All those in favor, please raise your hand. 7 in the affirmative, the student rep in the affirmative. The agreement with the Oyster River bus drivers is approved and will be a warrant article.
Very good. Thank you.
So I don't know who's going to explain the proposal to take the buses home. Will that be you as well?
Yep, me, Sue, and the drivers.
Okay.
So it's been a while now that the bus drivers have been told, mandated by management, that they were to keep their buses at the bus garage. And because it's been a while, number of years, how many years, Jody?
We brought buses home, I mean, bringing them home or having them at the...
Have them at the garage.
At least 3 to 4.
Okay,
We
so-
started probably 4 years ago.
So we have-
Before the facility was built, we were asked to bring them back, and then we were there for the process of the facility being built. the
Thank you.
building,
So the drivers have been parking at the garage for at least 3 years, and so we had good data. And I think that the intent at the time of the drivers taking them home was to save money, as so often is the case when we come up with great ideas. But there was no data to support that position. So Sue and I and the drivers decided to do a cost-benefit analysis, if you will, of what it would cost to keep the buses centralized or to allow drivers to take them home. And in the memo that I have included in your packet, it basically, after all is said and done, it actually is less costly for the district to allow drivers to take them home. So I'll just go through the high points and try to cut to the chase, and then we can invite Jody and Sue up to the podium. But essentially, what has happened as a result of having drivers park centrally is that the district incurred a cost related to prep time. And the reason that they did was because in the old days, when the driver had the bus home, as one of the drivers shared with me, we'd put a pot of coffee on, we'd go outside, we'd scrape the buses down, we'd start them up. It was all on our dime. But in centralizing them, we had a whole host of new costs that we incurred, which included prep time of the buses and the cost of making them ready to be driven on snow days, and significant centralized cleaning costs, and having buses be idled with no students on them centralized so they'd be ready to run when the bus drivers came in. So we'd have a half dozen bus drivers show up in the wintertime, clean off buses, clean off the ice, start up on cold days. The drivers would come to work like anybody else comes to work at whatever point it takes them to come into work and get to their first run. They would be sitting there, the buses would be idling. In that was a cost, just sitting there running. We also incurred a fairly significant cost in overtime, and we felt we could reduce that overtime cost by at least half. And electricity sounds like a small thing, but you plug in 28 buses every single day for 80 of the 170 school days, and you're looking at a $4,000 electricity bill. And so those are some of the items that we analyzed, just to put some money next to some of these ideas. So first of all, we don't want to misrepresent where we are. There is also a cost associated with taking the buses home, and we figured out that if we allowed the buses to go home, we would add a total of 34,992.71 miles. Very specific, because that comes from Lisa Hupp, because she's been able to do it right down to the penny.
7-1.
Yeah, and at $1.63 a mile, that would cost the district $57,038.12. But here's where we see the savings. We decrease overtime by $12,500. We decrease paid prep time by $30,206. We decrease storm day yard mechanics by $2,700. We reduce summer yard mechanics by $18,000. We reduce long idle times in winter months by $2,347. And we also reduce miscellaneous costs, including electricity, at around $4,200. What we weren't able to figure out is how much we would save in plowing in preparation for this evening. So the overall cost was $57,038. The overall decrease in cost was $69,953. So it resulted in a net savings of $12,914.88. So that's the logic we applied to the proposal, and I would invite Jody and Sue to come up to the podium, and between the three of us, I'm sure we can answer questions.
Hi, I'm Jody.
Are the bus drivers happy with this?
Extremely. This is something that happened for 35 plus years before, and it was a past precedent, and finally we have someone that listened to what we've been trying to say, that it wasn't cost effective where we are. Dr. Morse refers it as a pilot program. I like to call it also a working model. We know there's going to be other savings that we will not know until it's implemented, and then we'll have more solid numbers next year coming forward.
Denise?
And I realize that what I'm looking at is something that not everyone on the board has. So I don't know if we're taking a vote or just discussing tonight, but when it was broken down in terms of each bus driver and what their current miles to the garage is versus if they took their bus home, some people it was a significant savings, others it was basically a wash. And then there were others where it was much further to their home, or from their home, I guess I should say. So one of the questions that I have or suggestions is, I'm wondering if we might, as a board, want to cap sort of a max, like a max increased cost for a, you know, like not any bus driver could take the bus home if it was, you know, X number of miles more to take it home. You know, maybe we need to say no to some specific people. For example, on the chart that I have, one bus driver, it's 56 miles more if that bus driver takes the bus home. That's 56 miles a day, if I'm understanding it correctly. So, you know, I don't know if that's too many more miles, because, you know, we've just accepted a contract that has increased costs, and in terms of, yes, it's a savings, but obviously it would increase our savings if we did put a cap on the maximum number of miles, additional miles, in order to take the bus home.
So
Does that
Denise,
make sense to
yeah,
people?
it did. And you absolutely have the right to do that. One of the reasons why I've been calling it a pilot is I really would like to collect hard numbers before we went down the road of, you know, making it more specific like that. So if we ran it for this winter and spring, then these estimates would be actuals, and then we could have this discussion again in the spring, if that's okay.
May I also add, since you've received your list, we have gone individually to each driver, so 18 out of 30 have said yes. So some of the drivers that had great mileage on their bus, that was also, we figured out at first, home to first stop, back home. So it was several times back and forth. So those numbers have changed. A lot of drivers did not expect to be able to do that. They're going to come to district and stay and travel back home.
Okay.
So that number severely went down. Plus, not 18 drivers have said yes for this year.
Okay.
There may be some added, maybe some decide not to. So that number will fluctuate. So it has differed greatly from the information you had at first. We did narrow it down with that in mind, too. We wanted to get a more accurate number on miles. So we did go and ask drivers.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I'm supportive of doing this as a pilot, but just to understand numbers a little bit better, when we're talking about the cost, we're using a cost of 1.63 per mile.
Mm-hmm.
And is that, I assume that includes fuel and depreciation on the bus? That's like a
It includes
standard-
fuel and maintenance. It doesn't include labor costs.
Fuel
Or
and maintenance, but
depreciation.
what about depreciation?
Is
Thinking that a
depreciation?
bus
I don't
has
think it
a-
is.
No,
I don't think so.
a life. and-
Yeah, those numbers come, you know, right from the state in terms of our miles. I think it's based on fuel and maintenance only.
Okay, so it doesn't have that. All right.
I just have a question, I want to be clear. You said you reduced it to 18 drivers. Maybe I'm just asking you to repeat what you've said, but in reducing it, did you encourage the drivers that were creating, you know, they have these long trips not to participate, or is the 18 just people who want to do it? Or?
Well, like Denise did say, a couple of them did have a lot of miles, so we wanted to do some clarity with that
Yeah.
before we went forward. And some drivers decided, you know, they've started to build a life in this area. They may live in a separate town, but they travel to possibly a second job, or it's not convenient for them to take their buses home anymore because they've acclimated for the 3 years being in district. So that's why we went from looking at a group of 30 down to 18.
Mhm.
And just to clarify, instead of having 50 or 100 miles extra every day, well, that driver didn't intend to take that bus home 3 or 4 times a day. They were going to take it in district, they're busy, and they were only going to go back home again. So that's how we got more of a working number.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the drivers that did have higher mileage, like I would be putting miles on my bus, but I can't house my bus, so I'm in there, but my miles were removed because I'm not taking the bus home. I can't house it.
Okay.
So that model was just put out.
Would the overtime pay, isn't that mostly people working at the garage? Is that where there's pay for people?
No, the overtime, Ed, is this, it's a very complex issue because, you know, if we use Jody as an example, she's got the early morning run, she's got the kindergarten run, she's got her afternoon run, then she is offered trip time. She sometimes fills in for other drivers who have a doctor's appointment, the prep time. So what happens is driver's time continues to creep until, you know, a 30-hour run like Jody, 30-hour person like Jody could end up at 44 hours because of a whole host of things.
Okay.
Part of it being this prep time. So a person who brings their bus home no longer will get 15 to 60 minutes a day in terms of prep time, depending on where they are in the district.
Well, also, we had a driver that literally drove from her home to the garage to drive back to her home to start her route.
Right.
So that's why we went through and really individualized it and broke it down.
And so there are other initiatives too to cut down on overtime, and one is to shift, like if a driver is taking a trip and they get to the end of the week, it's less expensive for us to bring in a substitute for their afternoon run and keep them at no more than 40 hours than it is to pay the overtime. So part of the overtime thing was a whole creepage of various factors, a part of it being this issue.
One of the questions I asked when we were talking about this was, and I'll ask it again in public, in terms of the security and safety of the buses, your sense is that there's no, you know, if anything, they're safer dispersed at homes than they are in a
I
central
believe, and
lot.
also, in all fairness, I think we've had more incidences in the garage where we've had tampering with buses than we ever did when they were housed independently at people's homes.
Right.
If
sure.
I am,
I agree with that.
yes, we've
Lisa.
actually had more problem
Why don't you come
with
up,
them
Lisa?
being
Just-
out the
yeah.
garage.
Yeah, we've had a number of incidents where people, well,
We don't
we've
know
had,
who.
right, we don't know who, but we've had vandalism. We think we had at one point a person sleeping in our buses, eating our food that was left on the buses.
Love pretzels.
Yeah, pretzels is a favorite. And vandalizing our buses as well. So, and when they were parked at home, there was never an issue.
No, not that I remember.
Not that I can recall.
I mean, an occasional flat tire, but that happens anywhere.
Right.
Kind of thing, or
Yeah.
that kind of thing,
Yep.
you know, or.
Okay, other questions? So could we have a motion to approve this as a pilot for bus drivers to take their buses home? Al?
I'd like to make a motion to approve a pilot bus driver, take your bus home.
Is there a time frame for the pilot? For a year, 2 years?
We will report back in the summer because we'll have complete data from this point forward, and then we can bounce that data against these criteria. And in the meantime, Lisa, Hop and Sue can also be in discussions with the drivers of, is there any additional cost and/or savings that we weren't able to predict in this model? And so we'll give you a much more accurate depiction of the reality this
Was
summer.
that part of
This
the
summer.
motion?
Sorry,
I will accept that as part of the motion.
So what would you like the motion to be?
I would like to make a motion that we have a pilot bus driver, take your bus home, that runs through, I would assume.
The end of the school year.
The end of the school year, because then it would allow
Yeah.
us to examine the data.
Okay,
And I'll second that.
okay.
Starting when?
Now?
Now,
I just wanted to clarify.
Okay. Starting now, terminating in July, when we'll get some data, and then we'll determine whether we continue. Is that the understanding?
Yep.
Okay. Are there questions, other comments about? Ready to vote? All those in favor, please raise your hand. 7 in favor, the student rep in favor. The motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for all you do.
So the next item on our agenda is a retirement incentive. You may recall in our agreement with the Guild that annually, I would ask the board if they were interested in promoting a retirement incentive. And Sue and I have been in discussion on this issue as we built, or are building the 2015-16 budget. And we don't think it's to the district's advantage to open a full-blown retirement incentive as we have in the last couple years, largely because we don't think that there is that many people who would take advantage of it, and it's a lot of work for Sue. And we also are thinking that we would restrict it strictly to, in this particular circumstance, if you agree, to teaching staff or professional staff, and not make it a comprehensive retirement incentive. Quite honestly, when we do a comprehensive retirement incentive, as we've done in the past, on support staff, we actually don't necessarily come out ahead. But on the teaching staff, if a senior staff member leaves and we replace them with a less senior person, we generally come out ahead. So Sue and I have been talking about this pretty extensively as a proposition to the board. We'd use the same criteria we always have used, except limit it to our teachers and administrators, where there's money to be made, so to speak, by replacements, and limit it to 3, just 3 people, first come, first serve, in terms of this. If this worked out, for us, it would probably result in about $100,000 savings based on our past history with the retirement incentive and replacing teaching staff. So knowing where the proposal is right now for next year, this could be a huge help to us in meeting our 3% goal. So I'm asking the board to consider a mini retirement incentive to teacher, administrative staff only, and no more than 3 people. First come, first serve.
Yeah.
My piece of paper here says 5.
Right.
Well, Sue and I talked about it today. She said she was more comfortable with 3, so I'm
scratch
sticking to
5.
3. Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Al?
I'd like to make a motion to approve a mini retirement incentive for teachers, administrators, that's limited to 3.
Been moved by Al, second by Maria,
Yep.
seconded by Maria. Is there further discussion, questions? Denise?
Just in terms of the savings, I guess, I'm just questioning if that's a savings in 1 year or over multiple years.
1 year.
Because I guess when I was looking at the staff that we were hiring this last year, it didn't seem to me that we were recovering. I mean, there was a savings. I'm not going to disagree that there wasn't a savings, but to me, I'm not sure that the savings was, it didn't seem to me that the savings was more than the actual,
Sure.
Yeah.
Sue and I actually analyzed it on the basis
Incentive.
of teachers and support staff. And when you looked at strictly the teachers, there was a significant savings. That's why I'm trying to limit our scope on this time through, because that is where the savings is.
Even counting the amount of money they get?
Yeah, I mean, talking about, say, a classroom teacher, elementary teacher who's at the top of the scale with benefits is a little over $100,000. Somebody at the middle of the scale with benefits is going to be in the avenue of $65,000 to $70,000, not even going to the base. So that's why I use $20,000 to $30,000 as a savings. Now, where does that get wiped out? If the person who's retiring is a specialist, like a psychologist, or a guidance person, or a librarian, they tend to be more expensive than a general classroom teacher, and so that savings could be a wash. It doesn't usually cost us more, but we may not come anywhere close to that kind of savings. But classroom teachers, middle school teachers, and high school teachers, unless, again, we get into those specialty areas, generally speaking, we're okay in savings. And I have to say, our principals have been really awesome in terms of looking for the best candidates possible and being cost-effective at the same time. So we can't put as the objective, we want somebody who's less expensive. We want our objective to be somebody who's, very good to excellent still. But they have been doing a great job of hiring using the criteria that we've asked them to use.
Sarah?
Sarah?
I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. This says offered to teachers and administrators, and you mentioned when we were talking about professional staff.
That meant
So-
administrators to me.
Okay, no, I'm thinking, what about nurses or are those?
They are under the teacher contract.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I'm just wondering.
Just to clear, also, it's a guild agreement that, so I get just, when I first read it, I thought this was coming from the guild.
Nope. It's part of the agreement we reached with the Guild that I would ask the board annually if they would consider a retirement incentive.
Okay, and is that the new agreement?
Yep.
Okay, that's, okay.
Kenny?
Just have a question on the wording of the agreement. It says that the binding letter of intent to retire needs to be received by October 15th.
Right. We would change the body of it to reflect dates that would be more palatable. That, what you have in your packet is the language that we used last year, so you would know the parameters that I would use.
Gotcha.
But I would change the dates and so forth to be more appropriate.
Gotcha. Perfect.
Other questions? So we have a motion and second, right, on this? Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hands. 7 in the affirmative, the student rep in the affirmative.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, move to board action items. Motion to approve Oyster River High School maternity leave of absence request. Can I have a motion? Kenny?
I move that we approve the Oyster River High School maternity leave of absence request with the dates possibly February 11th, 2015 to May 11th, 2015.
It should be 15.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Good catch. Okay, seconded by Denise, moved by Kenny, seconded by Denise. Other questions, comments? Ready to vote? All those in favor, please raise your hand. 7 in the affirmative, the student rep in the affirmative. Okay, we've done the, approved the Oyster River bus drivers agreement. Would you have a motion to approve on second reading the adoption of the strategic plan academic goals? And we haven't approved the technology goals either, is my understanding.
Correct.
So we need to add that. Okay. Al?
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the high school, middle school, elementary academic goals and the technology plan with the following conditions. First, that the action strategies and timeline for the elementary goals be reviewed by the Elementary Strategic Planning Committee, and that there's allowed to be input from all of the staff members. The second is that the community-based learning STEM goal be rewritten
Okay. So the motion is to approve
with those conditions.
with those
Can
conditions.
you repeat the first one, please?
The first one is that the action strategies and timelines for the elementary academic goals be reviewed by the Elementary Strategic Planning Committee, taking into consideration input from the elementary staff.
So it's moved by Al. Is there a second? Seconded by Ed. Okay, would you like to speak to the motion then?
Again, when we looked over these, I think that the concern was at the elementary level that they hadn't fully formulated their goals yet. But we're also up against a timeline that the elementary staff needs to put those in their professional development plans. So by doing this, it allows them to go back to the staff, for them to look over the strategic goals, to ensure that they have complete support of the staff, and that the one that was really controversial, which was the community-based learning and the STEAM, could be looked at and fully worked at, and then brought back to us.
May I? Sure. So Carolyn and I met with the Massway staff, and due to a conflict in her schedule, I met with Moheramet staff. And I have to say that the meetings with the staff have been exceptional. The elementary staff has been super in terms of their analysis of these goals. And these 2 typewritten pages with all these bullets are my notes from the 2 meetings. So consistently, our elementary staff has said that they wanted to revisit the timelines as we determined them last summer. Some of them are already passed in relation to where we are today. And they also felt like the timelines may have been too ambitious in the first place. The issue of strategies, they wanted to revisit the strategies because they felt that the strategies needed more detail and, some of it need to be modified and or eliminated. And the actions themselves sometimes didn't feel congruent to the goal. So I have to say that in my conversations with the elementary staff over the past 3 weeks, they have been amazing, they have been productive, and they have been thoughtful. And I really appreciate it. I appreciate their input, and I know Carolyn did as well. And, we're ready to bring it back to them and work on those action strategies and timelines to make sure that they reflect the goals as we intended them to be.
Denise?
So I have a question and a comment. The first, if I'm understanding this, so then once those revisions are made, are they going to come back to us for final approval, or are we just saying whatever you decide?
Well, you guys adopt the goals, so based on Al's motion tonight, you'd adopt all of the goals except for the community-based learning goals, STEM goal. And then management, along with the teachers, develop the action strategies and timelines. But when we're done with that work, we absolutely would bring it back so you guys could see the finished product.
Okay. And then just a suggestion as far as wording, I guess. This is under the goal of the innovative personalized instruction, goal number 3, and then innovative student-centered instructional practices will support personalized learning for all ORCSD students on that page. Number 2 of the action strategies, where it says analyze student assessments to determine individual needs of students and so on and so forth. I've just had an issue with use it. To me, it just comes down to that's all we're using. And I understand assessments is more than testing. I mean, I get that. But it still feels to me that it's limiting in terms of the information that we're collecting in order to determine if the individual needs are being met. So I guess my suggestion would be to maybe say, instead of to determine, maybe say something like as it relates to, or something, just to kind of broaden it. Because I just really have an issue with it. Just, it sounds too limiting to me the way it is.
Okay. We'll make sure we bring that back to the team.
Just to clarify, are you saying that you bring it back to show it to us, or you bring it back, we approve it?
You guys approve the goals, and then we'll bring back the work of the elementary strategic team in relation to the action strategies and timelines and resources, et cetera. That whole section below the goal will be revisited and redone by the team, then brought out to the full elementary staff one more time, and then brought to you. Now, you can choose to approve it. Generally, the board approves the goals, but if you want to take the initiative and improve the strategies, the problem with that is that as you go through a goal, the flexibility of changing a strategy could only happen at the board level as opposed to happening at the teacher level. So if something needed to be adjusted, if you guys approve the strategies, timelines, and so forth, then the teachers say, well, we really need to change this timeline. I'd have to bring it back to you to change the timeline. Whereas if you approve the goals and the teachers say, we need to adjust the timeline to next March, then we can do that and just inform you and keep you posted. So there's a certain level of flexibility, Tom, that needs to exist in the plan so that we can make sure that we are able to do the work in a rational fashion without always coming back to the board for permission.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to mess with the time, on our level, trying to mess with the timeline. As long as the timelines can meet the goal, I think that's satisfactory. The only one that I really think that needs to come back to the board is the community-based learning STEAM, because it really wasn't, it's not, we don't really know what the goal is yet, so we can't approve a goal that we don't know what
But
it
saying,
is.
having said that, I do want to make sure you understand that our intent is to bring the full package back so you can see the changes that the teachers made to the process.
And then we would approve the
The
that
goal.
final one.
Yeah.
Okay, then I would like to say that I would like to see a little bit of clarity on the goal for the socio-emotive, emotional, because as I've talked to you, it's not clear that the teachers want to have a program that is the program for the entire school. Maybe they do, but if that is what they want.
No, that's not what they want. In my meetings, what they want is they want to have common outcomes and common language, not necessarily common program.
So if that's reflected, that would be good. Okay?
You can go for it.
No, go ahead.
I had a few things that I wanted to talk about. One was at the elementary school level, and it was the one Tom just raised, the social emotional skills. The way I'm reading it, it seems as if there's going to be a unified one at the two schools. And I wonder if that is correct. And I kind of feel that the schools have personalities and the staff are different. And I think having systems that take into account for individuality sometimes is very beneficial. And I don't know if I agree that we should standardize the approach that's taken at Massway and at Moharmet. And so if the goal is to have a program like that, I almost feel that should be at the building level and not at the two schools.
It's essentially this very, very similar answer to what I gave Tom Kenny. The feedback from the staff is they're not looking to have the same program. What they're looking for is common approaches and common language, common intervention strategies. All of these programs that exist have commonalities to them, but the problem is that we, within buildings, are using different approaches and different language, and so by getting to the same goals and the same language, not the same program, and then as students progress through our system, they'll be acclimated to the same expectations, not same program.
But number two.
It does say it the way you say it.
Number two says
We know.
a program, and that's
That's exactly
totally
what
where I'm
that's
struggling.
the feedback from the staff, that
So I would
It's
want
different.
to see that rewritten, that it's not as a program.
you'll
Is that-
see it rewritten.
And in number three there, I think I'm trying to understand the wording there. Trained staff in direct instruction. I think the wording, something got left out, or,
Yeah, this is all the work that the elementary strategic plan will do, so all of this feedback you're providing is very similar to the feedback that they've provided as well.
but so then my question is, how do we approve an action strategy if we don't see the action strategy?
Well, you are never approving the action strategy, you're approving the goals, just like you did when you adopted the broad goals.
Right.
So I guess, Ken, it would be, I'll try to explain it a different way. If as a body, you approve the action strategies, and then the teachers went forward to implement, and they realized that action strategy wasn't accurate or well-defined and needed to change, then they couldn't do anything until we had a board meeting to discuss that action strategy. So if we keep the board at the board level, then the teachers are able to address strategies and timelines based on what they're actually experiencing.
I'm sorry, I must have misheard, because I thought you were asking us to approve the action strategy
No.
part and not
Just the
not the
goals.
rest of it.
Just the goals.
So the long-term goal or the short-term goal?
Both. You already approved the long-term goal.
Okay.
That's done. It's the short-term goal. Based on Al's motion, you'd be approving all of the goals except for the community-based learning STEAM goal, which needs to be completely rewritten.
Which is not in this backup plan.
It should have been.
It was in the original.
It was in the original.
Okay, the original, okay.
So the STEAM, you're asking us to approve the STEAM No,
No,
nothing at all
not
to
that
do
No,
with
because there's no
Yeah,
goal.
Al's taken it off the table
Okay.
until it comes back.
So if we can jump off that social emotional one onto, I am still uncomfortable with the title, and maybe it's a type, I don't know. The elementary level strategic action plan, math K through 12.
Yeah, the title's wrong. Should be a K through 12 math.
Okay, that would make me much happier.
Yeah.
Because I am not comfortable approving something that is titled elementary when it involves all
Right.
3 grade
We'll drop
levels.
that. It's an easy change.
Piece of cake.
Okay, I'll say I'm ready to support Al's motion, but I would like to just emphasize that for this to work, teachers have to own it. Teachers have to own it, it has to be theirs. And I think it has to be respectful of something that Dennis has said time and time again, that teachers' major job is to teach their kids. There's a limited capacity for taking on new initiatives. And a classic problem with administration, I'm not saying this administration, but administrations in general, is to pile on initiatives. And when I saw you're going to have this socioeconomic program that's going to be concurrent with the math program, you wonder whether you get some dilution and just, piling on. So I think that, just my hope is that there's real sensitivity to the notion of ownership and economy, so that when we do something, we do it well. And if we find out we're doing too many things at the same time, we say which one's the most important one, and we space them out. And so we don't have this kind of clutter that I think I see in schools all the time, where just programs are coming at teachers right and left. That's just my hope, because I think if that doesn't happen, then things are going to be done in just a half-baked way, or teachers are going to just, feel like things are imposed upon them, so.
And I would say that based on my conversations with the teaching staff, Tom, they are in complete agreement with you. That's why the timelines became so important to them.
No?
I'll just add to that. I think that the most important thing to me going forward with these goals is that it really is a collaborative thing that occurs, because all too often, anybody who's been teaching for a long time knows, as many programs come through and, it comes to you as a classroom teacher, you don't really work with anyone else on it, and it dies, and the next one comes along. It's just, we're littered with so many of those. So, I think there's an opportunity, or I hope we take an opportunity at this point, where we really do allow the teachers time to work with the administration, work with each other in a truly collaborative manner to be successful, to get some of these things really implemented.
Okay. So we have a motion, it's a fairly complicated one, so I wonder if you could read it again, or?
Boy, I'm going to have her. All right. I had it as, my motion
I'm
was.
sorry, what?
Doesn't Laura?
No, but I want to.
Okay, I'll do it. So my motion, and by the way, I'm just thinking this off the top of my head, I didn't include the technology.
Yeah.
But I guess I can always come back with the technology.
You had it in the
You
original.
Did I have it?
included
You did.
You
I've
included
lost
it,
it.
yeah.
All
You
right,
did
so it's
have
like, so my motion was to approve the high school, the middle school, the elementary school academic goals with the following conditions. That the elementary goals go back to the time, actually, I'll just say all the goals for all 3 go back to their strategic planning groups, that they have an opportunity to review the timelines, and that they take into consideration input from the staff, the teachers.
Okay, when you say all 3,
I'm just going to say the elementary, because it was elementary.
it's the elementary.
It's the elementary, so that, let me start again. All right, so I'd like to approve, since it's complex, I'd like to make a motion to approve the high school, the middle school, the elementary school strategic planning goal, academic goals, with the following conditions. That the action strategies and timelines for the elementary strategic academic goals go back and are reviewed by the strategic planning committee with input from the entire staff, and that the communities-based learning and STEM goals be rewritten and come back to the school board for approval.
Okay,
So the first time around, you had the technology
Oh, and technology, just add that.
So we're,
Technology
But we
out.
had it in the.
Do you want me to just say, yeah,
Leave
technology
technology out.
technology is better just if I take it out, and then we can just do the academic ones, because I tend to think of the technology more as
Do you
facilities.
not want it in it then?
Let's take the technology out.
so then we'll approve that separately?
Yeah, I think it'd
Okay.
be easier.
Okay.
I'm getting totally confused. I thought we were voting on the goals, the
We are.
short-term goal.
Yeah.
Sure.
But you want the strategies to go back to the staff.
to
It
the
isn't
staff,
the
they-
goal that you want to go back to the staff, but the action strategies,
I want the action strategies to go back to the staff so they review them.
which we're not going to vote on anyway.
Correct.
No,
So,
but I want that as a condition that we approve the goal.
I see.
I think there was a sense that time ran out and that certain kinds of consultation didn't happen with the elementary goals. Is that fair?
Yep, I think that's fair.
So that they weren't circulated maybe in the way they might have, so
The
this,
strategies or the goal?
The strategies.
well, I mean,
The strategies and the timelines, I don't think there was a sense that everybody had a chance to really look at them and review them. And so
I get
we're
that.
approving the goal, but on the condition that everybody is on board with the strategies.
is that clear enough?
Clear as
I
mud.
understand it.
Okay.
Could I make a friendly amendment?
Sure,
When you say goal, call it short-term goal, because that's what we're approving.
short-term goal indeed.
Okay.
Got that, Laura? Short-term goal.
Okay. Okay, does everybody understand the motion? Kind of? So, we're going to vote? All those in favor, please raise your hand. 7 in the affirmative, the student rep in the affirmative.
Thank you.
Okay, would you want to make a motion then to approve the technology goal?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the short-term technology goal.
Moved by Al, seconded by Kenny. I think this was really well done, so. Are there discussions about the technology goal?
I have a question.
Sure.
There is no mention in the community engagement one of the hiring of a webmaster. And the feedback I get from community members, parents, and et cetera, is that our websites are not updated, they're not updated enough. And from talking with Josh and being on this committee, the bottom line is we don't have someone who can do that.
And it may not be in that particular point, Sarah, but someplace in that technology plan is the hiring of an additional staff member.
Okay,
And that is where that is part of the upcoming discussion you'll be having on the next budget.
okay,
So there is a position in there, but it
Okay.
doesn't say webmaster, it says an additional technology
okay.
person.
Are there questions about the technology goal? Okay, are we ready to vote on that? All those in favor, please raise your hand. 7 in the affirmative, the student rep in the affirmative. So we have most of the strategic plan done. Good, good. Okay, the last board action item is for the authorization to formulate a warrant article related to the Oyster River High School athletic field. So last meeting, we had a presentation on the athletic field. I don't know if, Todd, you want to come up, see if there are still questions about that? One of our goals was board goals was to create a warrant article for the athletic fields, to move forward on that. And so we had a presentation, and I think if we approve this, then the next step would be to see that warrant article.
Correct.
And then approve that for the vote, the upcoming vote in March. Okay. So could I have a motion then to authorize the formulation of a warrant article related to the Oyster River athletic field? Kenny?
I would like to make a motion that we authorize the formulation of a warrant article related to the Oyster River High School athletic field.
Moved by Kenny, seconded by Denise. Are there questions for Todd? Is there an issue about time the length of the bond that we need to have input on now, or is that something you're going to come to us later with?
No, that would be part of the warrant article in terms of discussion. Once we have the language down, we'll give the board choices. It'll also be part of your budget deliberations, upcoming budget deliberations. This this just moves the ball one step further so that we know that we have your permission to go forward in crafting the warrant article, and then yet before you is to authorize it. So.
Okay. Ed?
I just want to make a emphasis about the hydration center, which didn't come up in the proposal, but I know through the sustainability committee, we've been talking about, what I would call a drinking fountain, but now it's called the hydration center.
I remember those.
We will have multiple hydration stations.
Todd, the plan includes a complete undersurface, using Ed's terms, hydration for the natural fields, correct?
Yes.
It does, okay.
Yeah,
Somebody asked me that recently, and I said, I'm pretty sure, I'm almost absolutely sure it includes.
there's irrigation involved.
Irrigation.
And there's also, most of the cost of the project is the underlay work that goes on to, deal with the runoff to, like, I challenge everybody to take a look at the fields tomorrow when we get 2 inches of rain and see how many days it takes before we can get back on the fields to play. With the drainage that we're going to install, literally hours after the rain stops, we'll be able to be on the field using it, which is a major, major plus.
Other questions? Maria?
Just a thought. I do believe that the community has the right to make these decisions, and therefore I support the warrant article creation. I am still horrified by the recent articles I've been reading about the artificial turf and the health hazards and the cancer clusters and other not very good information, and that will certainly guide me in how I eventually vote at the ballot box. And so far, I like to think of myself as a hermit, so I don't talk to a lot of people, but I hear it over and over again, the concerns about the artificial turf.
And certainly, there was a story on NBC News last week, actually, talking about the potential risks, which certainly prompted me to do an awful lot of calling around and talking with the people that we've been working with. And there is a significant range when you talk about field turf or artificial turf in terms of what you're talking about and the components that you put into it. So there are a number of variables that can go into play. So there's certainly, in our discussions, we can certainly look at materials that are being used, and as things come up, there are lead-free products. There's a number of things that we can look at that can certainly mitigate the concerns people have. I think ultimately, though, when you talk about health and safety, I think about the day-to-day health and safety of our athletes on our fields. I mean, certainly, long-term health consequences certainly need to be considered. But when you're talking about, reducing things like concussion risks and reducing, knee injuries, ACL injuries, things of that sort on a daily basis, I mean, those are also things to weigh in on. And I guess I would also throw out, asking, the fertilizers you put on grass to keep it to grow, and then what you have to put into to keep grass field going. There's certainly room to debate whether that's a health issue there too. So absolutely, it's a valid topic to be addressed as we move forward. But I would encourage people to keep an open mind and realize that there's pluses and minuses that we have to take a look at, and obviously want to make the best choice for our community.
Kenny?
I hear what you say, Maria, and I was going to say a lot what Todd said. I think you really have to look at both sides of the equation, because there are the injuries. And you mentioned fertilizer, but even more than fertilizer, are the weed killers and the pest killers that are put, which wind up in our groundwater, which wind up in our bays, which also, it's a very complex issue, and I don't
It
know
is.
how you ever
Maybe we
arrive
should
at a
skip
data point.
sports.
But it goes both ways.
Of course, everybody's an expert instantly when you have the internet and you can, look at studies, and so a little bit of knowledge is probably a dangerous thing, but my sense is that in terms of like knee injuries, that there's no evidence that an artificial field creates more knee injuries, and if you have a bad, an overused grass field,
Right.
that becomes a danger also. Is that your
Correct.
sense?
Correct, actually, yeah, because what you get with a turf field is, it's a cushion, it's like they often call it a carpet, it's not really a carpet, but there's a cushioning to it and a resilience to it, and certainly on our field in particular, with all the compaction that's taken place over the years, it's oftentimes like a concrete surface, and there's no give to it. So when an athlete wearing cleats, puts makes a cut, it can cause the knee to twist. There's less inclination to that on a softer surface. It also, the concussion risk, when you fall and hit your head on the ground, frozen ground, obviously it's harder. There's a slightly higher risk there with a ground with compacted dirt versus the cushioned artificial turf. I'd also throw out the other thing, which the drainage that would be installed, actually, in a lot of ways, it directs the flow of things in a much safer direction. And so, a lot of people raise the issue of bacteria and so forth, kids spitting or whatever on the surface, and actually one good rain shower, and it washes that stuff out into the
I think
bacteria.
Todd, I think it speaks, Maria's issue and other issues that we've heard over the course of the 6 weeks we've been talking about this publicly, is it really speaks to a very carefully thought out communications plan. And I think that
Absolutely.
would be a great activity for the communications committee, Al, because, the issue that Maria has raised has been raised in one of our member communities as recently as last year. So I think that certainly is an important issue. I think when we start talking about the finances, that'll be an important issue. We start talking about health issues, that'll be an important issue. So what I would encourage is for you and Corey to meet with me in the communications committee and lay out all of the issues.
Sure.
Because if we're going to have a successful vote, we need to be able to address all of these issues pretty straightforwardly so that people know that we've done our research. They can accept and not accept the answers, but we'll have an answer and give them what we know. So
Right.
that would be something I think is going to be really, really important in this.
Right, and, yeah, in addition to all the fundraising efforts that we need
Exactly.
to educate people for as well.
Other questions? Okay, so you have a motion to authorize the formulation of a warrant article relating to the Oyster River High School fields. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 7 in the affirmative, the student rep in the affirmative, the motion passes. Committee updates? Al?
The ABC met, even though we're small, and everybody's ready for next week to scour the budget.
Good. Maria?
I had my first meeting with the Wellness Committee and found that very interesting. They're going to review the policy as we have it to see if it needs to be changed, updated, or whatever. And like anything, nothing happens quickly. I want it done now, but that's not going to happen. Because what we have is a component, and it's been called that from the beginning, a component of the Wellness Committee or Wellness Policy, and the drug and alcohol awareness and all that stuff are other components that will be added, but not in the absolutely near future. So I might not be here to see it done, but I like the work to go forward. One piece of information that I found interesting, and I don't know if this is being addressed, is that the busing schedule has changed. So those kids who are eligible and want to eat breakfast at school no longer has time to do so. So I hope somebody looks at this so that the kids will get what they need. The other committee last night was the in 68 Hours of Hunger Wellness Advisory Committee. We did go over the right to know law at length. Not everybody seemed to appreciate it, but we'll keep doing. But what I found really exciting was that the president of the Rotary was there, and the president, was it, from the Wilkinson Food Pantry in Lee, and they both want to get involved in raising both money and food,
Wonderful.
which is what my hope has been, to be able to generate the know-how for community groups to carry this forward. So
Great.
that's exciting.
And I believe I passed the name of Ray Salentano, who's interested in working with the committee, he was like a long-term guidance counselor at the middle school, who'll be a great contact.
Yeah.
So hopefully he can be involved as well. Other
And the
committee?
minutes are already on the web, along with our revised kind of structure of how the committee will be working. So,
Terrific. Thanks for all your work on that.
thank you. You're welcome.
Other committee updates? Okay, public comment? No? Okay, we have closing actions, but we will have a non-public session, but the future meetings, the 23rd, that will be a budget, all day or most of the day budget hearing. And then,
Excuse me, Tom?
yeah,
Do we have a time on that yet? Do we know what the start time will be for the budget? Budget
Sue, do we
workshop?
have the time? It's going to be 8 to noon?
8 to noon, but we will have lunch too.
We'll provide lunch.
And do we know where?
Lee,
It's going to be at the Lee Safety Complex, okay.
okay. Then we have the 5th and the 19th of October or November as regular meetings. And Sarah, did you mention that there's some agenda item you wanted to?
Yeah, I have two things that I would love updates on, Dr. Morse, at some point. One of those is the Chinese program. What's happened with that? And two, how are the changes to the music program going? How are they being received at the schools? How are they impacting kids? We've heard about numbers, and certainly numbers going up at the high school level and all of that, and I'd just love to hear, whether it be from the music department or from you, about how those changes are going. Because I know we talked last spring possibly about having Mr. Leonard back up to sort of, check in and see how things were. So.
absolutely. And the Chinese thing was on the agenda for the November meeting.
Excellent.
And we're glad to have music people come in. And can I suggest that that happens like after the new year, so that there's some time that they've implemented and captured data and all of that? The numbers are definitely up.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
I would like to make a motion to add to an agenda item to discuss the information that Dean Rupine gave us last time, or maybe the time before, about changing to, instead of always having our goal be based on the budget, be based on tax impact. And if there is a second to my motion, I would like to speak to it.
Is there a second? Seconded by Sarah. Okay.
I think at this point, it doesn't have to affect this year's goals, but with the increase of Barrington students, which bring potential for budget increases to whatever, but also brings the revenue stream, it's very hard to just have the goal be budget, because say it goes up 5%, because we need to hire extra staff. It doesn't give the full picture when we have the revenue stream to offset it. So to talk about we can have so much increase on the tax burden, total tax burden, we don't have to split it up to each town, but total would make total sense to me. And make it easier for everybody to understand what we're talking about.
So is the idea that we are setting the requirements for future boards, how they're going to present the budget goals?
I think it's something we should be discussing and should understand better.
Not to set a goal, but to have a conversation about.
Right, not to set a goal, but to understand better.
Well,
So if we're going to bring it forward, I mean, it's a good discussion, I think, to bring forward. But I think when we do it, what we really need to do is like, let's look at, all right, for example, this year we said not to exceed 3% total increase. We need to look, I mean, I've heard.
Increase of what?
Our total budget is what we're saying.
Budget,
It has
right.
nothing to do with revenue. What we really need to do is like, okay, now Dean's proposed, let's look at revenue. First of all, it's kind of hard for me to, how do you predict a year out? I know we've done Barrington, but the component that you're going to do with the revenue coming in, we'd have to make, I guess, an estimate. But irrespective of that, we need to let's look at them side by side, what they look like this year. I mean, if we were to implement that, what exactly does that look like compared to like a goal and, like the total budgetary goal? Let's see how they relate to each other. I mean, and I think that'd be an interesting discussion.
That's my motion, to discuss this and understand it.
I would add to what Al said, and I think this is where we need some history too, is I think it'd be good to kind of rework some of those past years, the past 3, 4, 5 years, and rework them in that way too for that discussion, because really what we're looking at is trend, and what we want to really see is what direction we're moving in, what that slope is. I think this would be a good thing for a future agenda item, really,
Yeah.
to have, some research done, some of the figures done. I don't know the timing of it for this year with us in budget season, and maybe we need to get this year's budget down, but maybe in the early winter, when the budget is kind of, put to, its final preparation, that we have that discussion and see the numbers and see how things look. They're presented in different ways. I do think the point that as we're adding those tuition students, we're not getting any credit for it. And it really, we're not seeing that reflected in our budgeting. And if anything, we're getting penalized from it when we start to add staff, add resources, because it's an expenditure, but there's no item that's crediting us with that revenue. And it makes us look like we're spending more money than we really are. We talk about that cost per pupil number, which is a very rough number, but this is a way, I think, to fine tune it better.
I would think that in our budget meetings, it's fairly simple to have like a net budget increase and a gross budget increase to look at anticipated income and to see how that offsets. I think to set budget goals in terms of how it's going to affect tax rates becomes really complicated in terms of how tax rates are figured in the communities. I mean, if you'd say like.
It's not tax rate, tax burden.
Okay. Well, it seems to me that there are ways of like representing that by looking at anticipating revenue and seeing offsetting, using that to offset. I'm sure that would, in our budget meetings in the 23rd, we can look at that. I mean, I don't think that would be hard to formulate, would it?
I think it is actually very complicated. Because quite frankly, Sue and I have played around it play around with this idea since it was brought up in public comment, and it's quite variable. And then what Maria just said, it's not tax rate, it's tax burden. I don't know what that means. I don't know what the difference is between tax rate and tax burden.
The tax rate is the mill rate, which
Yeah.
is 3 different ones. The lump sum that's going to be divvied up by 3 towns is easier to talk about because of the formula and evaluations and leave versus whatever. So it isn't the mill rate we're talking about the lump sum.
Okay, so, I mean, there's a good example of, an understanding of terms,
Right.
because as Sue and I have played with it, we actually were looking at tax rates, not burdens.
But
And tax burden shouldn't be that hard to deal with.
But tax
But-
burden is impacted by revenue, which is impacted by.
For
state
sure.
revenue.
Yeah, I was gonna
For
say,
sure.
you're asking, are we separating, so you're just, when you talk about revenue, it's more than just tuition. Are you gonna include all the revenue that comes in and subtract that from the budget? I mean, again, we're
No,
kind of,
I'm talking about tax burden.
I'm talking about, because it's like, there's more than just, we're talking
And
about
the-
tuition.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go on, we can.
Yeah, that's my point. I feel like we're having the discussion now. I think we need to, if there's a motion, like, just go ahead and vote to have the discussion at another time, because I'm kind of mindful of it getting late.
Thank you.
Okay,
And I would suggest we do that after this current budget, because it's too much.
After
Because I
the
would-
election.
What?
After the election.
yeah.
So you got motion in a second.
I have a motion and a second. I will vote against it because I think this will all be clarified when we have our budget, when we have the budget presented. I don't see this as necessarily needing a full discussion of the board, but whatever the board's decision will be fine. So,
Could I hear the motion again? Because I like what Kenny said about you making kind of an agenda item. Is that what the motion is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. It's sort of the same, you were talking the same thing. Okay.
I made the motion. You.
It's educational.
okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? 6 in favor, student rep in favor, Tom Newkirk opposed.
And another motion for, or maybe I don't need a motion. I would like an action item on the agenda altogether to acknowledge public correspondence. I know before I ran, I used to write to the chair, and I have no idea if he read it or anybody else read it. I just think it's courtesy to say we got an email from parents interested in changing the school day or something, very quickly.
So is a motion to add that to the,
Agenda
Agenda.
format.
okay? Motion is to add correspondence to the agenda format.
Yes,
Is there a second?
acknowledgement of,
Is there a second? Kenny? Second? Discussion?
Not,
I think it was eliminated because to streamline the meetings, you're going to add something else to the meetings. Whether that's something you want to add, that's your decision. We had it, we eliminated it.
We maintain the book. Every correspondent that's come in, if anybody wants to see it, is in the central office. Wendy keeps it faithfully. If you want those recorded in the public session, I mean, it's very easily done, but it is another time-consuming issue.
Yeah.
I don't see this as a discussion item. I see this as chairs just saying thank you for sending us this letter.
Well, it's adding to the agenda, so I'd like to
Yeah.
have a vote on it. If you want me to add it, I'll add it. If you don't, my inclination is everything, most of the things I've done in terms of agenda is to streamline and so we could get to the work of the board as quickly as we can. So that's, you know, my bias. Now, if you add something, you know, you're adding time. Now, so it's up to you. I mean, I'll do it at whatever the board, I'm not going to make a unilateral decision on this. So I'd like to have a motion second. You want me to do it, I'll do it. If you don't want me to do it, I won't do it.
Was there a
No,
second?
she didn't even make a motion.
You have to make
Well, she did in the end.
Well,
No.
Kenny,
I
Kenny
make a
seconded.
motion that we add to the agenda acknowledgement of
Oh, this is another
correspondence.
one.
Yeah,
And-
for the public correspondence.
And just to ask a question, does that
That was the
include,
motion for you,
And-
seconding.
and does that include summarizing the public correspondence?
Not
Or just saying
necessarily.
that we acknowledge them?
Yeah,
So it's just a sentence, that's what I thought.
So, oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead, Denise.
No, you go
We
for
haven't
it.
seconded
guess-
the motion yet.
No, I
Yeah,
seconded.
Kenny seconded. So I guess, because the way it took place before is it was a commentary, and I think part of the issue was that whoever the board member that was doing it in terms of how they summarize somebody's letter or what have you. So what I'm hearing is just an acknowledgement, but does that mean we're going to read each person's name into the record? I mean, I guess I'm really confused by this. And I guess part of me feels like, frankly, I feel like it's kind of late to have this discussion, and if maybe we could have this discussion another day. I don't know.
Well, we have a motion,
I was going to say, I feel, on one hand, it's so easy to say, and thank you for all the correspondence next, and go on to the next item, which is hardly worthwhile saying, versus what was used to be done, which could be, you know, depending on who you were trying to give kudos to, or just, you know, thank especially,
okay.
it could be a long thing, so I don't know.
And depending on the issue.
And
'cause,
depending on the
you know,
issue.
we could have tons of correspondence on a given issue.
Right.
Sarah?
I'm just going to say, I'm very torn because I think, I struggle with the idea of how to acknowledge what people say. And I have had trouble because I'm not chair, I can't necessarily, I feel awkward getting back if it's a letter to the entire board. At the same rate, I have to say, I will vote against it because I think there's another, I don't know what it is yet, but I think there's another way to get around it, and I don't think adding time on is going to be the answer.
So we have a motion, a second. Is there further discussion? So the motion is to add a section to the agenda to acknowledge correspondence. So all those in favor of adding that to the agenda, please raise your hand. One in favor, all those opposed? 6 opposed, student rep opposed, the motion fails. Kenny?
I think it's time, I'd like to make a motion that we enter non-public based on New Hampshire State Law, RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, subsection C, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the public body itself. I'd like to
Okay.
make that motion.
Moved by Kenny. Is there a second? Seconded by Al. This requires a roll call vote.
Denise Day, aye.
Sarah Farwell, aye.
Kenny Rotner, yes.
Al Holland, aye.
Tom Newkirk, aye.
And Charlie, aye?
Maria Bart, aye.
Megan Duty, aye.
Okay. So we will go into non-public session.
Great.
Boy.